Hello, Mithril here once again, getting back to Mag Mammal 2, and it's time for the judge commentary on the last two stages of Tier 7. So, starting with 28th place, 128 up, Spiky situation. Snurrun Pyro. Gee, I wonder who made this level. I can't tell. Yeah, from what I gather, 128 up is kinda known for making things like this. I really like the setups in general here, and the usage of the needles in your custom platforms were pretty clever, but I think the level was just too instant death happy. I understand that that's the point of the stage, but it doesn't stop the latter half of the level from being frustrating. Once the more dangerous setups with the platforms came in, it felt like I just kept dying to the spikes over and over, just because I hadn't really learned the setup yet, and that led to me redoing the previous setups over and over, and it was just bleh. The first half of the level is really good though. Again, I really like your usage of the needles. The boss fight with the kid is pretty fun, if a bit basic, and the extra challenge with the white fruit thing is really neat. I haven't seen true bullet hell in a Mega Man ever before. Overall, I still like the level, I just really think the second half could have used some more room for error. Joopy Hornet. Very inconsistent level. The first section was a fairly easy and fun stroll with some enemies and spikes, but the castle's interior was a ridiculously hard platforming challenge that wasn't fun at all. I kind of enjoyed the first boss, but that secret boss was awesome. It was very creative for this contest, and it felt like something straight out of Sound Dodger. However, that boss was pretty extreme without access to E-Tanks. Angel. Pretty cool I want to be the guy aesthetic. While I'm really not a fan of the sprite work and think adhering to the source material solely through the needle theming and cherry references would have been enough, I enjoy the platforming this level has to offer. Having never played the source material myself, I can hardly judge how closely the challenges presented here adhere to a proper curve from said source. However, what I can say is that the level provided fair and exciting platforming challenges throughout, until it got to the segment with Crashman platforms, which put a spike, in the difficulty to the point where it's really easy to mistime a jump and be forced to redo the entire section over. 2 sections if you're not smart enough to actually activate the save station, a feature which I think wasn't a needed addition, since placing them in a way where they're unavoidable would have made idiots like me less likely to miss out on a checkpoint. The first boss of this stage is rather boring, but I found the optional Toho boss to be pretty fun to fight, probably due to the music. I wish I had less RNG-based unavoidable sudden hits though. Overall, fun stage for the most part. I just wish it had a bit more slopey difficulty curve and stuck to its platforming roots. Gariri. I've got to be honest, the extra boss is the primary reason why this level gets such a high score. It's done in such a creative and interesting manner, and the way it's synced to the music is just impressive. Anyway, regarding the level itself, it surprisingly manages to remain fair and fun despite the abundance of spikes and other damaging obstacles. However, some parts still remain quite cheap and require high levels of precision. But even with that in the way, there are enough checkpoints to make the experience fun and not tedious. And a Spark. I was expecting to hate this, if only due to its clear inspiration. I mean, it's not exactly great, but the challenge is interesting to play. You actually introduce mechanics well, conveyance was good, there is some interesting setups, if a bit finicky, and your checkpoint placement is pretty good overall, with a notable exception of the final set of rooms. I was expecting spikes to be flying everywhere, and am thankful they weren't. For the most part, this level just requires timing and precision, and neither to overly fine degrees. The second crash platform room, whatever its requirements are, they're insane. Either a pixel-perfect jump or sliding underneath the spikes atop the moving platform, which is weird because the rest of the segments give a very clear idea of what they expect from the player. I cannot under any circumstances get through the second crash platform room properly because of either the glitchy nature of the platforms, being unable to time it, or my own loathing for pixel-perfect jumps. Post-judging comment. Some of this came down to messed up collision. This has been fixed post-judging. Wonder what was going on there. The bosses were interesting. I get the reference, sure, but they are pretty odd and very luck-based. The first one does seem to get easier the longer the fight lasts, and the second one throws maybe a few too many projectiles your way, which if the RNG gods decided to not be in your favor, will lead to deaths, more so than just a lack of skill. I beat it the first time I fought it, took a few attempts the second time. As an aside, getting it to sync with the music? Brilliant. This stage wasn't as bad as its first appearances suggest, but it's frustrating towards the end. Yeah, I was expecting this stage to be a lot worse than it was, given what it was inspired by, basically. It's like I said, I fully expected spikes to just suddenly appear underfoot. I'm used to I Want to Be the Guy games. Not necessarily a good thing, that, but I am used to playing them. So, yeah, this stage could have been a lot cheaper, a lot more unfair than it was. As it was a challenging platforming stage that was a bit intimidating overall, but still fair. It felt very doable. The second boss, honestly, I'm kinda glad you were locked out of using E-Tanks, because if you could just tank your way through it, I think that kind of would have ruined the challenge of it overall. It wouldn't have really felt as rewarding overall. But yeah, pretty interesting stage overall. I like this one. And yes, getting that fight synced up to the music, that was an amazing touch. I really liked that. Well done. And second, we had 27th place Betasword's Ruined Lab. Snow and Pyro. Interesting Mega Man 3 styled level, though I have a few issues with it. The first half is mostly fine, though the free scroll section feels like you're making blind jumps sometimes. The hologram at the beginning is kind of dumb because it just makes you wait until it goes off screen. Or, you know, kill it with wire. The Double Snake mini-boss is incredibly overwhelming, and I don't know if it's possible to do without getting hit. The giant Met mini-boss basically just amounts to mashing because it just flies in and out of a shooting range, and all of its projectiles can be destroyed with one shot. The rest is fine though, and I actually really like the Met section. The second half brings its own set of issues, mainly from using junk golems, which are awful enemies that are basically impossible to not get hit by unless you do absolutely perfect movements. And they're in quite a few rooms, in very obnoxious places. I also question the decision to bring back the Rush Jet section from the original Mega Man 3, because I'm pretty sure no one liked that. I didn't. Thankfully, you can skip it with Super Arrow. Doc Robot, while neat, I feel is too unpredictable and inconsistent sometimes. Sometimes it seems like he just fires Gemini laser whenever he feels like it. It also doesn't help that he has a high contact damage and a ton of health. He does sort of have a rhythm to him though because he has the Crashman AI, so it's not too bad. So overall, it's an interesting level, it just has some issues that keep me from really liking it. Choopy Hornet. I really like how this level started as Wily 1 from Mega Man 3, and then transformed into a much more non-linear level. It's a very creative concept, and it really took me by surprise. My main issue is that underwater section, which was full of blind jumps. Another thing is, although this is a really good level, it did feel like it started to overstay its welcome a bit. It easily could have ended after I got the key, but that was actually around the halfway point, where it transitioned in Mega Man 3's Wily 4. It took me a few deaths to learn that Rush Jet section, which was annoying. The boss was really cool, and I liked the ominous feel of the section leading up to it, but did it really need 3 health bars? Angel. Pretty neat Wily stage type stage. I like the throwback to Mega Man 3 in the beginning, and how you're just further exploring the sewers beneath the fortress. There's a large variety of challenges here, most of which I like, some of which often killed me before I could react, though those deaths were usually my fault for not paying enough attention. Every time I arrived at the ladder area, my first death went to the spikes you can see as you enter the room. Generally, I prefer what the second half of the level has to offer, with some tricky platforming segments and a Rush Jet section that I initially accidentally skipped with Super Arrow, and I felt really crappy for doing so. I didn't. The boss is a cool combination of various robot masters, though it has a metric ton of HP, and I feel like 2 full health bars would have been more than enough. The scripts in this stage also crashed quite a few times when I died, which is unfortunate. Overall a cool and pretty challenging stage. Gariri. First off, I'll admit my bias towards levels that are based on already existing stages. I'm saying this because this level is based on Mega Man 3's Wily 1, and doesn't do that great a job at doing something interesting with it. Aside from that, the level just kinda sucks. Often the placement of enemies and other obstacles gets really irritating to deal with, particularly in the Rush Jet section, and the bosses are way too difficult. Not to mention how bad the collision is, and how the level takes 10 seconds to load. On the bright side, I think some of the ideas here aren't too bad, but they were executed poorly. And Aespark. Most of this stage is average. The clever parts of the stage were the Super Arrow Easter egg, and the second mid-boss was pretty cool, if a little hard to hit. Checkpoints were well placed, and I like the transition from Tileset 1 to Tileset 2. That was neat. The stage copies a lot of stage design from the actual Wily stages, which is okay in concept, but these stages are quite literally filler we've already played. The original segments come with some glaring issues, though. The twin Big Snakey fight wasn't fun. It amounts to spam, with both Snakies firing at the same time, rather than them having a balancing act, making dodging in that section all but impossible. There are also several blind jumps enemies in the large underwater room, which is frankly ridiculous. But I really take exception to your boss. The concept is pretty cool. All of the Dead Kit bosses loaded into one Doc Robot, that's awesome. But you fail completely to actually do any of this well. There's no tells or indication as to what attack he's going to pull off, so luck is required to dodge anything. No color scheme swapping, no image in the background to tell you what attack he's going to use next. Nothing. He just picks a random attack, pulls it off immediately, and then picks another random attack. Ugh, a cool concept ruined. Then you gave him 3 health bars with no changes to the boss fight as you go through said health bars. No phases, no nothing, he's just got a ton of health for no reason. I'm sorry, what? There's no justification for that, and is just there to force players to use E-tanks, as dodging the boss's attacks can sometimes be impossible. Your boss fight ruined any goodwill I had left. Okay, I'm glad I wasn't the only one that felt that way about the Doc Robot fight. It definitely could have been done better. Like, while I was waiting for everything to save and thinking about that stage, kind of the thought I had was that maybe there should have been like a ruined monitor in the background that swapped between staticky images of the various robot masters, and that would be the attack pattern he was using at the time. I think that could have made the fight a lot better. And yeah, 2 health bars honestly probably would have been enough. 3 was just kind of overkill. The stage itself, yeah, it did have its problems. I didn't really think about it until reading the judge comments, but the Twin Snaky fight was kind of spam happy. And that big underwater room, for it being as big as it was, there really wasn't too much in the way of tells as to where things were, and it was only by accident that I even found that some of the background elements, you could actually stand on them, which I don't think you could in the original game. So that was a bit confusing. It's an interesting idea for a stage. I kind of like the idea of revisiting the ruined remains of a Wily fortress like that, but I do think overall the concept could have been done better. But anyway, that's where we're going to call it for now, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I shall see you again next time. Until then, fare thee well.